Today we're going to be creating a basic web application that allows us to type into a text box and submit, and it will be posted down here to the bottom. Now this application is actually made without any input element, and I'll show you how I did that here in just a moment. So over here in the code I've got a blank folder here, and we're going to create a couple new files. We're going to create the index.html file. We're also going to need a styles.css file, and we're going to need to create a script.js file. Alright, so that's going to be all of the files that we're going to need for today. So first thing we want to do is we want to create our HTML template, and we're only going to need a little bit of HTML here, so we're going to need to create a div called textbox outer. Alright, and inside of that we're going to create a placeholder div, and then we're going to create a text box element dot text box inner. Alright, that's where all of our text, we're going to be able to type our text at. And then also we're going to need a button, and that's going to have a class of btn. Alright, and we're going to say submit. That button's going to be able to submit the form. Alright, and then we're going to need to create a text or a another div where we can add the text to at the end. Alright, so we're going to call that new text outer. Alright, and that's basically it for the HTML. We need to include our CSS. So I think, yeah, we call it styles.css, and then script. We're going to have a source of script.js, and we're actually going to defer that so that way it runs after the body loads. And that's about it for the HTML. I don't think we need much more than that. Actually, we'll need to add the IDs so that we can access those in the JavaScript. So we'll add an ID here of placeholder. Oops. Placeholder. There we go. Alright, and then this is going to have an ID of text box. Alright, and this is going to have an ID of btn. And then this here is going to have an ID of placement container. Alright, so we've got our basic HTML done. That's all that we're going to need for the HTML of this. Next, we're going to jump over to the styles. And there's one thing that I forgot to mention. We are going to need to add a flag to this called contenteditable. This is what's going to allow us to type inside of the div. Now, if we save that, we can actually open it up here, and you can see that we can actually now type inside of the div. Now that doesn't look very nice, so let's clean it up a bit. And the button doesn't work, nothing works. So let's clean it up a bit, and I'll show you how we can add the placeholder, and you cannot select the placeholder. So we'll add that, and it automatically disappears once you start typing, and it reappears once there's nothing left in there. So let's do that. So if we go over to the styles, first thing we're going to need to do is on the text box outer class, we're going to have a max width of 350 pixels. All right. We're going to have a margin, just to get it off the side here a little bit, margin of 20 pixels. All right. We're going to have padding. We're going to have 3 pixels on the top and the bottom, and 0 on the right and the left. And then we're going to also add the position relative here. That way we can position the placeholder properly. So we'll have that on the text box outer class. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to position the placeholder. Alright, placeholder, and the placeholder is going to have a position of absolute. It's also going to have a z-index of 2, and we're going to add some padding to it of 3 pixels. Alright, and then next thing we're going to need to do is the text box inner. Text box inner. Alright. We're just going to add a basic border around it. Solid 1 pixel. And then I'm just going to copy this RGBA value here. Copy that. Paste that in there. Alright, and we're going to have a minimum height on this. That way it's not just a little tiny box. We're going to have a minimum height of 150 pixels on this. We're going to add margin bottom of about 8 pixels. That's so we can get it off of the submit button a little bit. Add some padding all the way around of 3 pixels. Just to align with the 3 pixels of padding on the placeholder and to get it off the edges a little bit. We're going to have a z-index. I'm going to set the z-index to 10, but you can set the z-index to anything greater than what is on the placeholder. So if the placeholder is 2, then it has to be at least 3 or more. Anything more than 3 will work. And position relative, so that way we can use z-index. Alright, and if I save that, you can now see that starting to shape up with the border, with the blue border, the minimum height, and we can type inside of there now as well. Now, one other thing I did forget was the placeholder. You can type here. Alright. Now, right now, the placeholder is just sticking there, but we cannot select it whatsoever. So, that's good for, because we don't want people to be able to select the placeholder for any reason. It's just a placeholder. So, now that we've got that done, we're going to add a couple more styles here. We're going to grab the focus visible of the text box, because that's what whenever you click inside of it versus clicking out of it, that's why the black border is showing up. So if we grab the text box inner here and we target the focus visible, alright, we're just going to add a border, and it's going to be the exact same as the one up here. So if we just grab that, and we're going to set outline to none. Alright. Next, what we're going to need to do is we're going to just style the button here. Now the button is just a blue color, and it's just got black text with some border radius here. So we're going to target the button. So it's going to be .btn, and we're going to set the background color to that right there. All right. And then we are going to set the border none. Then we're going to set outline to none. Border radius to 24 pixels. And we're going to have some padding on the top and the bottom. We're going to have 5 pixels. And on the left and the right, we're going to have 15 pixels. All right. That'll give us that nice rounded shape there. That looks really good on buttons. So next thing we need to do is we actually need to target the hover of the button. So whenever the mouse is hovering over the button, we're going to grab the .btn class, and we're going to target the hover pseudo selector. And we're just going to say cursor pointer. That way, whenever we hover over it, it gives you that little pointer, and whenever we don't hover over it, we have our normal mouse. All right. So the only other things we need to do are to be styling the text area where we're going to be adding the text to. So let's do that real quick. We'll get the new text outer. All right. And we are going to set the max width of 500 pixels. Now we want this to be able to wrap with really long stuff. So I set the word wrap to break word. All right, and then I just set a little bit of padding of 5 pixels on it. And then there's one more class that we haven't used yet. We haven't actually put into the HTML, but we will use it once we get to the JavaScript. It's called new text item. All right, and the only thing it does is adds 10 pixels of margin all the way around. So that way we get once we have multiple items, they're not just right on top of one another. So there's that done. So that's just the basic styles. Now let's get over to the JavaScript and actually get this thing working. Alright, so over here in the JavaScript, we are just going to just add a little bit of JavaScript here. It's not too much. So we're going to first select the text box. Whoops, text box. And box is equal to, and we're going to say document dot get element by ID. And we're going to say text box. Alright, and then we're also going to select the button. Document dot get element by ID button. Alright, so those two items we're going to need to add event listeners to. So the text box, we're going to add an event listener when we have an input. Now this will fire every time someone types a letter. So types anything into the input box. It'll fire this event listener. And the only thing we're really going to be doing with that is we're going to be toggling the placeholder. Toggle placeholder, alright? And then the button, we're going to add an event listener to that as well. And on the click, what we're going to do is we're going to be submit post. There we go. And that'll just, once we click the button, it will add it to the bottom down here. Alright, so we're going to create those two functions now. We'll start with the toggle placeholder function, and we're not going to accept any arguments. So we're going to select the text box is equal to document dot query selector. Nope. Document dot get element by ID. And it's going to be text box. All right. And we're also going to need to select the placeholder. if I can type holder, there we go. Document dot get element by ID, and we are going to select the ID of placeholder. All right. Now we're going to say if text box. Now the text box that has content editable. I can't say that word. The text boxes that have content editable, we cannot just select it by value like we can with like a regular input, but rather we're going to select it by the text content that's inside of it, because technically it's just if we type something in here, and if we inspect it here, it's just literally text nodes inside of that div. So that's all that's going on right there. So close that out. So yeah, we have to grab it by the text content rather than value like you would with a regular input element. So we're going to check to see if the text content dot length, all right, is greater than 0. Basically, if there's something in the text box. Then what we want to do is we want to placeholder dot class list dot add, and we're going to add the d-none class, and we actually need to create that class over here in the styles. We'll just put it right up here at the top. D-none, or add the dot d-none. Alright, and we're just going to set display none on this class. Alright, that'll give us the d-none class. Now we're gonna have an else statement saying if this is not true, if there is something in there, or if there isn't something in there, then we're going to go to the else statement, and we're just going to remove that d-none class. Alright, so now we should, there we go, our placeholder is disappearing whenever we type something in there, but it only reappears when we have nothing left in there. Alright, so that function is completely done. Now all we have to do is create the submit post function, and we'll call it submit post, and it's not going to accept any arguments either. Okay, so first we need to select the text box. Get element by ID, text box. All right, and we need to select the placement container as well. Placement container is equal to document dot get element by ID, and we are going to select is going to be placement container. All right, and we'll save that. Now we can, next thing we need to do is we need to create a new div. All right, and this is where this is going to be inside of the placement container, but it's going to be it's going to contain all of the text. So we'll have it'll look something like this. We'll have this here, and then we'll have another div here, and then this is where the text will be, and we'll have another div another div here and here and here and here and here, so on. It'll just add up on top of that. All right, so we're going to create a new div, if I can find the V, and then we're going to set that equal to a document dot create element. create element, and we're just going to say it's a div. All right. And then now that we've created our new div, we can add things to it, properties like classes. So we're going to say new div dot add, class list dot add, and this is where we're going to add that new text item class. All right, we're going to add the new text item class to this new div. Now I'm going to save, I'm going to create a variable called output value, and we're going to set that equal to textbox dot text content, because remember we have to select it from the text content. Now we're going to set the new div dot text content equal to the output value. All right, so it's just going to add the text content of the new div that's equal to this output value, and this output value is saved as the text content of the text box. All right, and then the last thing we need to do to make this work is we're going to add the placement container, and we're going to append child to the placement container of new div. All right, so now if we save that, we start typing, this is my new tweet, or post rather. I click the submit button and it shows up, and I say this is another fun post. I love talking on social media all of the time. This is amazing. We'll hit post, and there we go. So we've got this new post and this second post here, and we can continue to add more if we want. We can, you know, add the exact same thing 100 times if we want. But the only one catch is this is a full front end application. It's a very static application, so once I refresh, it's all gone again. It's not saved to a database or anywhere. You'd have to add an entire backend for all of that, but that's a different video. But for now, this has been the workings of a content editable element, and you can make any element into a content element, editable element. You can even make a span content editable, and I don't know where it's at, but it is there somewhere. Whoops. And you can edit that too. Spans are nice because they're inline, so you know, since the button is also inline, we can it works inline with the button there. And you can add it to other things like article tabs. Content editable is true, and we can edit that. So really, they're super flexible, and you can do just about anything you want with them. So I hope that was a clear understanding of what content editable is. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will try to answer as many as possible. And until next time, later.